Right, so starting out with Unit 1, Lesson 1, Intro to Functions. We're going to start out with some vocabulary. The first word we're going to talk about is a relation. And a relation is just a very, very, very broad term. There's a lot of things that are included in a relation. But it boils down to it's just a set of points. It's just a bunch of points. They may make a graph. You may just see the points listed out, but it's just a bunch of points. And so we show these points or these ordered pairs in a graph sometimes. Sometimes you might see a graph. In a table. So you've seen a table of points before. You have a column of X's and a column of Y's. Something called a mapping. If you look down on your paper number 3, that is a mapping. Or it might be an equation. So a lot of things are considered a relation. Now a function, so basically if you have all these, so every one of you is a relation. I might say my function is everybody that's wearing a black shirt. So that narrows it down quite a bit. So a function, what you need to remember is that the X values do not repeat. So if I look at all of the tables of points that are in my relation, all of the graphs, I'm looking at the X values. And I want to make sure that the X values do not repeat. So my first example, I'm going to make an example. I'm going to just write out 3 points. That would be a function. So all 3 of my points need to have a different X value. So for example, 4, 7. The point 2, negative 8. And the point 3, 7. In case you have forgotten, a point, the first number is an X, the second number is a Y. So are all of my X's different? Yep. It doesn't matter. I only care about X, and they're all different. So now I want you to go over on the not a function side and make an example of something that would not be a function. So 3 points. You can write 3 different points that would be not a function. All right, does anybody want to give me your example of points that you wrote down? No? I won't call on you yet, but I am going to be calling on you. So an example I'm going to come up with is 4, 7, 2, negative 8, and 4, 9. Why is that one not a function? Yep. I've got 2 of them that both have a 4. Yeah, and that doesn't matter regardless. The Y values could all be the same. They could all be different. All that I care about are the X values. So it's pretty easy when you have the points listed out and you can just look at the numbers. It gets a little harder when you have a graph. And so I'm going to start by showing you an example that would not be a function, and then I'll tell you why. That is an example that is not a function. When we are looking at a graph, we want to do what's called the vertical line test. Which way does a vertical line go? Up and down. Okay. So if a vertical line, if I were to like shoot a laser beam through my graph, a vertical line, if it hits my graph more than once, it fails the test. So right here is an example of where a vertical line or a vertical laser beam would hit my graph more than once. It would actually hit in 3 spots right there. That's why it would not be a function. It fails the test. Now this right here is a function, because there's no place that I could take a vertical line and it hit my graph more than once, except for the arrows, but those don't count. So you've got to look at a vertical line. Now I have 6 examples, and you're going to be working with your tables and just putting yes or no. Yes, it is a function. No, it is not. And before you get started, let me explain number 3. So number 3, this is called a mapping. And when you are thinking about or looking at your points, you start with the number that's on the X and you follow the arrows, and that gives you the Y value. So for example, one of the points is the point -4, 0. Since you have 4 arrows, you need to list out 4 points. Okay, but I'm not going to tell you those. I want you to try that with your groups. Okay, so go ahead and write. All you're doing is writing yes or no. All right, so number 1, JC, yes or no? Yes, it is a function. That is correct. If any of these you don't know why that's the answer, or you got something different, speak up. Number 2, Victoria. Yes, it is. So far, if we only look at the X values, they're all different. Number 3, Michael Todd. You put no. Are you sure about that? I agree with you. It is no. Now, if you look at this in this circle, all those numbers look different. But this one, I also have the point -2, 3. See how there's 2 arrows coming from the 5? That means I have a point at 5, 7 and a point at 5, 9. So just those. So if we look, 2 of those points have a 5. All right, what about number 4? Emily. That is correct. It is not a function. See how this vertical line would hit both of those points? That makes it a no, not a function. These points have the same X value. Very good. Number 5, Jaden. Yes, it is a function. That's correct. And last one, number 6, Christian.
No.
That is correct. Right here, this is a vertical line. It would hit there, and it would hit there. All right. Any questions? All right. Now we're going to do something a little bit harder. We're going to get into what we call function notation. We're going to be actually doing some math. You might need your calculators for this. Okay. So far, you've always been used to seeing something like y equals 2x plus 7. We're going to be writing it a little bit different. Instead of putting y equals, I'm going to be putting this. Have you ever seen that before? You probably did in Algebra 1, but it probably slipped your mind. The way that I would say this out loud is f of x. F of x. All that I did was change the y. I just changed it to f of x. We need to remember that f of x equals y. They're the same thing. Literally like having a dollar bill having 4 quarters. They look so different, but they're worth the same. Yes.
So, like, if they were the same thing, why just change it?
It helps us with other stuff, and just because math is weird and they just change up things on you. But it's going to help us. You're going to see some types of questions that you wouldn't see otherwise with these. So if we look down here, I still have the same. F of x equals 2x plus 7. I'm asking you to find f of negative 3. So this is a type of question you'll see often. What did this negative 3, what did it replace? It replaced the x. Because we started with f of x, and then I went to f of negative 3. So that means that my x is negative 3. So when asked to find f of some number, we're just going to put that number in for x. So I'm going to rewrite this f of negative 3 equals, and then I'm going to put the negative 3 in the x spot. So 2, and you always want to put that in parentheses. So whenever you plug something in, put the negative 3 in parentheses, and then we have the plus 7. And you can type that. You start with the 2, type that in your calculator.
Do we have to have the f in the calculator?
Nope, start with whatever comes after the equal sign. Once you get it typed in, check to see that the people at your table got the same answer. Chantel, what did you get? You got 1 and I got 1. Did everybody get 1? Yeah, so this 2x plus 7 makes a line. You learned about graphing lines in Algebra 1. You spent a lot of time on that. This line has a point at negative 3, 1. The x value is negative 3. The y value is 1. So we're going to do some examples. If you look in the direction, I have 2 different functions. I have one that's f of x and one that's g of x. You can have any letter you want. It doesn't have to be f. And you'll see that a lot because we might have 2 different ones, and that tells them apart. So see how number 7, we're finding f of negative 9, but number 8 is g of 2. So that tells you which function that you're going to plug it in for. So number 7, f of negative 9. I'm going to look up here and I'm going to replace the x with negative 9. So I have negative 5 And you always put that number in parentheses. And then that's minus 14. And then type that in the calculator. All right, Serena, what did you get on number 7? It is 31. If you did not get 31, make sure, did you have negative 5? And then in parentheses, negative 9 minus 14. There is a difference between the minus and the negative in your calculator. Any questions? All right, let's try number 8. This one is g of 2. So I'm going to look at the function that starts with g. And I'm going to plug in a 2 for that x. And actually there were 2 x's, so you got to plug in the 2 for both of them. Every time you see an x, you're going to put a 2 there. Make sure the squared. So right above the division sign, there's a button that has like a looks like a roof on a house. It's this button right here. That's going to let you put in an exponent, but you got to make sure when you're done typing in the exponent, you use your right arrow to come back out of it. All right, and number 8, Michael McKinney, what did you get?
21.
That is correct. All right, I want you to try number 9 on your own, and then you can check and work with the people at your table. All right, number 9, it's f of 7, so you need to find the one that starts with the f, and then plug in a 7. And Micah, what did you get on that one?
21.
Ooh. Go back and look. Make sure you put the negative there, because I bet you forgot it.
Is it 49? Yeah. Is it negative 49?
It's negative 49. Good. It's perfectly fine. All right. Before we go on to number 10, I need you to type 2 things in the calculator for me. I want you to type this in, and I want you to type that in the calculator. Just like I have it wrote down. Type both of those in. Yeah. Get an answer for both of them. Yeah, one of them is negative and one of them is positive, and only one of them is correct. If you're doing negative 3 squared, that means negative 3 times negative 3. Should that be positive or negative?
Positive.
Positive. So it's super important that you put parentheses. When you're squaring something, put that number in parentheses. Otherwise, you're going to run into a mistake. And the calculator's not wrong. it just is thinking order of operations. It thinks that you're doing the 3 squared first, and then it's putting on the negative. All right, so number 10, when we go to do g of negative 3, we're going to make sure that we put that negative 3 in parentheses. I'm telling you that now, and I bet there's going to be one person that doesn't type in the parentheses. Prove me wrong, please. All right. Riley, do you have an answer?
Negative 19.
It is negative 19. Very good. All right, so try numbers 11 and 12 on your own or with your table groups. Make sure you all agree. All right, do you all agree with me on numbers 11 and 12?
Yeah. Easy.
Let me look.
Very difficult.
All right, numbers 13 and 14. We're using the same equations. But this question says if f of x equals negative 44, find x. Does this question give me my x value?
Yeah. But in an if statement.
It's, what does it ask me to find? X. So that means it doesn't give me the x. So this negative 44 is not my x. This time, see how that negative 44 comes after the equal sign? That's different than these questions that I've been doing. Okay, so if your number comes after the equal sign, that's technically your y. So whenever it's equal to a number, we have to take this equation, this negative 5x minus 14, and set it equal to negative 44. So it's going to look like this. Negative 5x minus 14 equals negative 44. Actually, you can't just type this one straight into the calculator. We've got to do some algebra.
The most difficult subject.
Two-step equations.
Oh.
We're solving for x. For those of you that can remember back a little bit, what step should I do first?
I'm not gonna lie. I think you should
Add 14 to both sides. This is something you gotta know how to do this. These should be like, you should know step, oh, I got this. Alright. So,
we cancel out the 14.
you cancel out the 14s. Yep. We can bring the negative 5x down. And then type into your calculator, negative 44 plus 14. And tell me what you get.
Negative 30.
Negative 30, good. And what step should I take next? Divide by negative 5. And what answer do I get? 6. So what that means is if I were to take this 6 and plug it in, I should get negative 44. So these will be tricky because your nature will just be, oh, I just plug in a negative 44. You have to look at where that number is. Is it in parentheses? If it is, that means it's a little easier. Or is it not? Right, so number 14, f of x equals -9. Do I plug in a -9 for x? No. I got to do it just like I did here. It's still using f, so I'm still going to do -5x minus 14, but I'm going to set it equal to -9. And I want you to work on this one. You're following the same steps as you did in 13. All right, you should have added 14. That's your first step. And that gives us -5x. Just pay attention, don't wrap up yet. Equals 5. And then we got to get the x by itself. So we divide by -5. And that gives us x equals -1.